Boy, 2 days in a row, and we've got two commitments to talk about for Auburn football in the 2025 class. This one's on the offensive side of the ball. So let's talk about who that is and, of course, what it means for Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers. War Eagle Auburn family and a special War Eagle and welcome to those of you that consider yourselves part of our E2C network family, the best little family within the Auburn family. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you are live or on the replay, however you got here, whenever you got here. We appreciate you being here and being part of the show. On today's live stream, we have got a live reaction to some news that broke today. Some great recruiting news. That's 2 days in a row for Hugh Freeze and the Auburn football team that they have garnered a commitment for the 2025 class. Who is that individual? That is Broderick Shull. I'm trying to pronounce that right. I keep mispronouncing it in typing, but also for me just saying it. Broderick Shull from the state of Oklahoma. We have quite a few things to talk about with this commitment. So what are we going to get into here? What can you expect? We're going to talk about the things that you need to know, the basic gist of where he's from, what he's like, where he's potentially going to play, all of those different angles. We're also going to get into what it means for him, what it means for Auburn, what it means for Auburn's recruiting class, present and in the future. All of those things are going to be discussed on this live stream. So saddle up. And as always, if you enjoy this type of content, we appreciate you smashing the like button. We have a lot to get into with this particular one. And I'll be honest with you, I knew that we would start having some more of these recruiting news things start to break, especially since Auburn's had its camps recently and still ongoing with those somewhat. But with that comes official visits, and that comes opportunities for guys to get a really good look at Auburn and decide if they want to commit to Tigers, which two individuals have already been talked about today. If you missed our live stream yesterday, we did Donovan Starr, a defensive back, most likely a cornerback. We have done a live stream, what it means video about him as well. You should go check out. Here we are today talking about this particular one. Shouldn't have been surprised that another one will be coming down the pipe, kicking off you're at least getting you into your weekend on a good momentum note for yourself as a fan, but also for the football team heading in to this weekend in the summer. So Broderick Shull, what do you need to know about him? We've already mentioned that he's on the offensive side of the ball, but he is a 2025 offensive lineman commit, more specifically, and where people will expect him currently. This is all current stuff that we're talking about, folks, in these videos. An offensive tackle. So that's what you can plan on him playing when he arrives here at Auburn in terms of some measurables that give you an idea of where he will likely fit into his current, stature and things like that. But that may inform where he goes. He's currently listed somewhere between 6'5", 6'5.5", and 275 pounds. So pretty comparable with a lot of offensive tackle measurables. Usually you see them being on the taller side of the offensive lineman, longer wingspans, things like that. He seems to fit the mold there. So we'll just plan on him being an offensive tackle commit for Auburn at this time. He comes from the state of Oklahoma. You heard me right. Auburn is dipping into the state of Oklahoma. Isn't that just weird to hear? So look out, Oklahoma Sooners. We're coming into your territory and you just barely. Technically, have you even entered the SEC yet? I mean, I guess you're in the emblem now. They've already, got SEC Media Days coming up pretty soon. But all of that obviously is interesting to see Auburn going into Oklahoma. Bixby High School is where he plays. Now, originally he's from Missouri, I believe, and played there up until his sophomore or junior year. I think it was his junior year. So he's a Midwest guy, that region of America guy, which is just really cool and unique to see Auburn go in there. More on that in just a little bit. We kind of already talked about what we needed to there, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. So offensive tackle, and obviously, in addition to the 2025 class, he is a good pedigree, seems to have football running in his veins. I believe it was a relative or dad or something like that played for Kansas State. And you always want to hear things like this. What else are they involved in terms of athletics? Because it can give you an idea of how invested they are in themselves, obviously their sport, but even outside of this, in other sports that may help hone their skills. He's a good basketball player, apparently, gets involved with that, but also is into boxing training, which, as you can imagine, will probably help with hand placement, footwork, all of those things, and will really benefit you down the line as an offensive lineman, which people forget. They think it's literally just shoving people around. It's a lot more complicated than that. And I'm not even an offensive lineman player from the past. I can just tell you from observing the game and being on teams with obviously offensive linemen, they had to block for me as a kicker. They have a lot of effort, work, and mental stuff that goes into their efforts to be great offensive linemen. So Broderick Shull has a good pedigree and does a lot of things outside of football to help hone his skills as part of this 2025 class. Also cool to see Auburn go toe-to-toe with some Midwest schools. Nebraska seemed like it was going to be a particularly challenging opponent with this one, and you can imagine they've got a good thing, at least it seems like, going over there right now with their new head coach that's been there, I think, about a year now, something like that. But he had some other official visits planned that he is supposedly, I believe, not going to take at this time. Seems like he really liked what he saw, shut it down. And this is just another win in the column for Coach Thornton, who has done a great job in this class overall so far. So some things that I want to talk about, and obviously if you guys have anything that you would like to mention, a lot of people just celebrating in the chat, what anything that you'd like to talk about in particular, where he fits and all that stuff, obviously post them in the chat. If you're watching live, you can also do that on the replay as well. Let's move into our conversation part about what it means. What does all this mean? Yeah, it's great that we got the commitment. First of all, you got to get him to sign on the dotted line. That's not even a given these days. That's a huge, important part of this. But what does it mean from what we currently know? Well, let's look at the recruiting list right now. This is the 13th overall commitment in the class and the fifth offensive lineman. And if you go with what is expected for each of those 5 guys, this also makes it the 3rd offensive tackle in this class. So that's kind of a breakdown of the class thus far as it kind of shakes out with what everybody's thinking. The guys that you want to keep in mind are offensive lineman recruits alongside him. Travaris Dice, offensive tackle. You got Carday Smith, an offensive tackle. You have got Ty Buster, who's an interior offensive lineman, and also Spencer Dalland, who some sites has him listed as a offensive tackle, and I've seen other people talk about him as a interior guy, but his measurables seem to say tackle. Anyway, 5 offensive linemen, 3 to 4 offensive tackles in this class. So we are stocking up for the future. I'm equating this, and why I bring this up, the wave that is building up at Auburn of right now of this young guys that have already been here at offensive linemen that we're rebuilding of sorts. This feels a lot like that for the next wave after them, because hopefully the guys that are going to be playing and starting a lot this year are getting a lot more playing time. You're going to see for a couple of years at Auburn, and then these guys will get here and so on. You can see how a good foundation is laid. So number 13th overall in the class in terms of right now, what we know, and that's changed because of decommitments and stuff. And then the 5th overall offensive lineman. In terms of rankings, and again, I always stress to you guys when you talk about stars, and I know someone's already asked it, and rankings are great, stars are great, but they're not the most important thing out there. But most sites will now have Auburn, and already kind of had him there close enough in the top 10 as far as recruiting rankings. He's considered a 3 to a 4-star. Some speculation I saw that he may move up, have a chance to be a 5-star at some point. Again, doesn't matter how many stars they come in with, how many stars they leave with is the important thing. You can all roll your eyes at me now, but it's the truth. You can be mad at me all you want, but it's the actual truth behind all of this. All right, so let's talk about what does it mean for Auburn. When we do this, I like to talk about who is currently here on the roster, who may not be here, because that's a good thing to inform about playing time and things of that nature. So what does it mean for Auburn? If you look at offensive tackles right now for Auburn, you are probably going to see starting at your tackle positions Percy Lewis, who is a senior. So he'll be gone. Dylan Wade is an offensive guard, but he'll be gone as well. He could also play tackle. He's done that before. Connor Lewis still be around, so that we're not going to count that one. Jeremiah Wright is a senior, so he'll be gone. Isaiah Miller. So you have a senior offensive lineman, except for your center position right there. You've got a couple of backups that are seniors as well. Jaden Muskrat, Tate Johnson, and EJ. Well, actually not EJ, but several others that are on there. And then you've got a bunch of young guys. So you can see this year that we're losing a lot. So when you look at the numbers we just talked about, 13 overall commits, 5 of those are offensive linemen, you understand why we're bringing so many in this class. And they have done so already. Coach Thornton doing a great job in this class, getting these guys in here early, getting them secured early and getting them ready for time being. So what does it mean for Broderick and his potential playing time? Well, if you look at all those people leaving, it stands to reason that there are opportunities abounding. The one thing is I think there's a lot of guys behind these guys currently that are going to be ready to take those starting playing time options, at least in terms of you don't see a lot of offensive linemen coming in as freshmen and starting right away, at least to start off the year. So my guess, and this is going to be the boring answer, is a lot of these guys, especially for Broderick, you're going to see them either redshirt or if they work their way into playing time like Connor Liu did this past year, you might see them a little bit early more often. The great thing is they can play for 4 games without burning their red shirt. So, but for now, plan for these guys, especially Broderick, to redshirt, but still great. I always like to talk about the angle too of where they're from. We already mentioned that a little bit. Auburn doesn't go out to Oklahoma all that much. With Oklahoma coming in to the SEC, it's great to see us going out to their territory before they come into ours and taking one out of there. You know, most people will say Oklahoma didn't even want them. Hey, we still went into their territory. The point is we went up to that region and created a relationship that can potentially last down the line, because it's all about creating relationships, pipelines up into that state, up into that region, and then you never know how they'll pay off in the future. So it's a great thing to see that happening, and we'll see if that pays other dividends off down the line. And it would be the first one from the state of Oklahoma this season, or this recruiting class. But I don't know when the last true Oklahoma high school recruit we brought in was, but I feel like we've talked about one in the past. And finally, what does it mean for this recruiting class? We've talked about the numbers. The big question that Trevon Reed always used to address is, are we done yet? And he would always say no. You are losing, I think we counted about 6 seniors this year. So it would stand to reason there are 6 spots available. You always wonder too, do you want to keep some open for a transfer portal? So whether we're talking about high school, whether we're talking about transfer portal, I'm going to assume we ain't done yet in terms of who's coming into this class, either transfer or high school ranks as they commit to Auburn. Seems like a year we're going to just be filling up as much as we possibly can. Get them in here, get them started to compete, and see who can come out of the pack as the next future wave of the Auburn Tigers. But so nice to see that this class has been filled up with offensive linemen so early. And a lot of people whose gripe has been about, and somewhat rightfully so, about offensive lineman recruiting not being a priority, at least seemingly so. That doesn't seem to be the case with this staff and in this class. So those are some things that we wanted to address with you. If you've got other comments, questions, topics that you'd like to hit them in now in the chat, especially live. So before we get out of here, I want to give you a couple of reminders before we summarize and get out of here and talk about everything that we have covered. Some things to keep in mind if you want to catch us on our next schedule, the live stream, scheduled being the key term, this Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern time, the Auburn Experience podcast, our main show at 9 Eastern time, episode 80. We'll talk about sports, we'll talk about culture, and of course, the Auburn family. All the Auburn Experience, episode 80 this Sunday. If you missed last episode, make sure you tune into it before we do this one so you can be up to date. You can get that wherever you listen to your podcast. And of course, if you like some other content, we just put out a conversation today about the NCAA lawsuit settlement and how it might affect, or will it affect, Auburn. So don't miss any of that content out there if you are interested in doing so. Let's see here. Wardank Eagle says, I like this offensive line class, how it's shaping up. If we get Babaloa, the future is extra bright. I don't know who that is, but obviously if someone with that very interesting name comes along, we'll talk about him and get very excited. Just as a clarification here, folks, our stuff, we talk mainly about when people commit, when they transfer, things like that. We don't really focus too much on, well, how did their visit go and things like that, because really it doesn't really amount to anything. But just to kind of clarify, you'll see this type of content from us analyzing, reacting to some of the news, getting familiar with who your commits are, who your transfers are, who your signees are. That's what you can expect from us here in terms of recruiting. So, with that being said, some final thoughts on this particular topic about this particular player. We addressed that he's from the state of Oklahoma, the 13th overall pick. Not pick, I keep calling this like it's the NFL draft. Pickup in the recruiting cycle, the 2025 recruiting cycle, the 5th overall offensive lineman, somewhere in the 3 to 4 range offensive tackles total. Has got a good pedigree, a relative that's played football and is very involved in athletics outside of that, and will most likely be playing offensive tackle for you, the Auburn Tigers. So we've talked a little bit about him, what it means for him coming in as part of this commitment, what it means for Auburn's recruiting class, what it means for Auburn's future. And we'll watch, wait, and listen. Hopefully he'll sign, and hopefully we'll be talking about him being an official addition to this class in the very near future. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out. Till we talk to you again, War Eagle.